Hi again everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. Time for a weekly update, and it has been one hell of a week. It's been a super busy week, but it's lovely weather. We're all safe and healthy. It's just become cool enough for this light hoodie. So we're in the middle of May and it's finally cooled down enough that I can wear a light jumper. I'm still wearing shorts and get her out most days without shoes on, but you know, Australia. So, but it's been a busy week. Work has just been super busy. But in and amongst all that, I've still had time to do quite a bit of reading and have surprised myself with how many books I've actually finished this week. So let's get right to it because I got tons and tons of books to update you on. First of all, things I have finished. I think I spoke about this last time, but I finished The Nowhere Child by Christian White. I'm going to quickly run through everything and I'll go back and talk about my impressions. Finished The Nowhere Child by Christian White. Finished Deep State by Chris Haughty, which is a brand new one out this year. I don't think I even mentioned this last week. And also finished, I mentioned it last week, the Kim Jiyeong, born 1982, the Korean modern masterpiece, I guess people are calling it. I finished that. As well as that, I finished a book that was the winner of the Stella Prize 2019 called The Erratics by Vicky Laveau Harvey. Finished that and started this week, or the books you wouldn't have heard of that I've picked up and started this week. I have, next in the BookTube prize, I have picked up, just wait, I have started Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, a therapist, her therapist, and our lives revealed about therapy. And so that's a BookTube prize, can't tell you anything about it, but I'm a good lump of the way through that. I finished Charged, which was the one about, which is also a BookTube prize. I finished Charged, which was about mass incarceration in the United States, so mandatory sentencing, huge prison sentences for seemingly minor crimes. And finished that. That was also a BookTube prize. And I've started also for the BookTube prize Solitary by Albert Woodfox. So I can't tell you anything about those three. Finished one, started two more that I'm pretty excited about. The other thing I started this week is called Below Deck, another Australian one, Below Deck by Sophie Hardcastle. So I've been on a bit of a mystery thriller type jag recently, and this seemed on the surface to be in that genre, but it is so much more than that. Might talk about it another time because I'm not finished and I want to do it justice, but it's been a great thing to pick up. And I also am reading at the moment, picked it up, haven't done much with it just yet, but I've started reading American Dirt. Everyone's talked about this, everyone's read it already. I'm late to the party as usual, but hey ho, there you go. Don't have any impressions so far. I'm only about 50 pages in, the writing's fine, the story seems okay. I've tried to stay away as much as possible from the discussion about, the cultural discussion that people are having about this book and the cultural problems that people are having about this book. I may, as I get deeper into the novel, I may have to investigate that a little bit more widely, because I'm not sure for an Australian audience whether those particular cultural and race considerations would even come to mind for an Australian reader. So I probably need to avail myself of that discussion at least, so that I know how others think about the book. But so far it's been good. But let's back up a bit, because the two things that I finished, let's talk about Kim Jiyeong first, because I mentioned this last week and I said I wasn't sure about it, and I'm still not sure about it. But it was good without being brilliant. It was interesting without being very engaging, and I don't think that's changed from last week. I said my opinion was that it didn't give us enough time to get into these characters, and I think in a small book you could do so much better with the characterization. So you're either going to have to concentrate on characters or concentrate on plot, and I felt that this one didn't do enough of either, that it kind of in parts felt like reportage. It kind of felt like that you were just trying to tell us what the plight of women was in Korea with a lot of true to life stories, and that's why I say it felt like reportage or a study. So it had lots of that very topical, truthful information in it, and it was just information. And then at times it almost felt like the story itself was interspersed around the non-fiction narrative bit. So it really sits quite weirdly in this non-fiction slash fiction space. I know it's billed as fiction, it's about a fictional person, but it does so much in the non-fiction space to tell us about the plight of women. It makes for really interesting and thought-provoking stuff, but as a novel, I don't think it works incredibly well, even as a short novel or a novella, no matter whatever you want to call it. So I think I only gave it 3 stars. It's a good 3 stars. I liked the writing in its and the translation, I think, was okay. But I just felt like it could have been so much more. Yes. So let's leave it at that. So 3 stars for Kim Jiyeong, born 1982. And then I hold these up side by side together because this one is an Australian one, The Nowhere Child by Christian White. This one, of course, is an American one. It has a picture of an American landmark on there, Deep State by Chris Horty. This one was out a couple of years ago. Christian White has since released another book, which I will be reading soon. And this is Chris Horty's first book ever. And they sit kind of side by side in the genre department. This is mystery, exciting type mystery, and this is thriller. But I kind of see mysteries and thrillers kind of following similar story arcs and story developments. So even though the punch might be different, the pacing might be different. This is quite a slow burn of a pace, and this obviously as a thriller is a much faster pace. But I found them very good to consider side by side, simply because they're both first books, and they're both trying to do something very, very different to the rest of the market. And I gave them both 3 stars on Goodreads, but I made the comment that they are both 3.5 star reads, and very positive 3.5 star reads. Sometimes I give 3 star reads or 3.5 star reads, and because there's a lot wrong with the books. And I think as first novels for both of these authors, these are these are really good first novels. Not great, these are very, very good first novels. And I would happily read either of these authors again. But I feel as a first novel, I thought with the flaws that are in them, and sometimes it was a little bit predictable for both of the books, I thought, yeah, okay, I can see you have talent, but I want to see more. So it was a really positive 3 stars rather than I almost threw this out the window 3 stars. For Christian White, as a mystery, it's about a girl that goes missing in the late 1980s, early 1990s in the United States. And then transpose that story of a person going missing. There's a woman in Melbourne, a grown woman in Melbourne, who gets approached at a cafe or somewhere one day where an American man says, "I believe you are this person, this girl that went missing 30 years ago or 25 years ago," which blows her life out of the water, as you can expect. And then the rest of the book is them trying to work out how that if she believes him first, and if she does believe him and he's got the proof for that, then how did I get here? So my entire life has been a lie. I had this seemingly normal life with a mother that I loved and friends that I have, and I knew my history very well. And all of a sudden, that entire history is thrown out the window. It's an interesting concept where your entire life needs to be rediscovered. And as a mystery, that works really, really well. And I really like this. The flaws, I thought at times it was a little bit predictable. Like, it was just, okay, I didn't see the thing that this was going to be the thing, but once you knew that she was this other person and she had to unveil it, not that I knew the ending, but I just, okay, you're going to follow this path, and they did. So it was very much a by the numbers, by the book mystery. I couldn't guess the ending. I didn't guess the secret, and that's good. It wasn't that obvious. But I think it was a by the numbers mystery that, as a first novel, was an excellent example of a mystery genre. And the same in the thriller genre, Deep State by Chris Horty. If you buy into this concept of the deep state in the United States, which is, even the definition changes, but it's this shadow operatives who are part of big business and government trying to subvert the direction of the government and the United States to their own ends. So if you believe that, it asks you to believe that very early in this book, where a young, innocent, naive woman who's just left the army, so she has these incredible skills that the army has taught her, of resilience and power and all the other skills that you get from spending any time in combat and in the army. And she gets a job as an intern at the White House in the West Wing. And she's the oldest intern there. She's got different life skills to everyone, and she feels completely out of place. And then she's thrown into this story about the deep state when one of the president's aides, or it might even be the White House chief of staff, is assassinated, or is found, not assassinated, it is found murdered, or is found dead. And they assume he's just from a heart attack. But then the woman who is the main character gets thrown into this web of intrigue about the deep state and trying to uncover who may have killed the White House chief of staff and how deep this conspiracy goes. And from that point on, it really is another by-the-numbers thriller, using some pretty topical conspiracy theories about the deep state and about the state of the United States politics in general to progress the story. And you know, it does a great job. That's why I gave it 3.5 stars. It's an exciting read. I knocked this off in like 2 days. You know, I'm not going to say the word unputdownable, because I did put it down, sometimes in frustration, going, oh my God. But it was still an enjoyable read with good characterisation and a good tale told well. And when you're talking about mysteries and by-the-book mysteries and by-the-book thrillers, that's all you want. You just want a tale that you can just sink down into and just go along for the ride. It wasn't completely unbelievable, like a Matthew Riley, which is like bullets and shooting and heads exploding. It's a lot. Both of these books are a lot more subtle than that. But one, really good mystery. Another, a really good thriller. Both first novels for Christian White and Chris Horty. Give them a crack. Give them a go. American Dirt, I'm not going to comment on at all. I don't think I'd do it justice by making comment on it right now. And the other one I finished this week was on audiobook, and that was The Erratics by Vicky Laveau. The Erratics by Vicky Laveau Harvey. And I picked this up on a whim. I can't remember it receiving much fanfare, apart from the Stella Prize win in 2019, but it didn't really excite me that much last year that I felt like reading it last year. So if it did pique my interest, it obviously waned pretty quickly. So this one I picked up on audiobook, and it was about a woman and her sister. The woman is Vicky Laveau Harvey, lives in Australia. She's from Canada, and the memoir is about life with her mother, who suffers from a mental illness. And I'm going to use the word that Vicky Laveau Harvey calls her mother, and that is crazy. And if you think of what that word means, I'm not trying to be offensive, but Vicky Laveau Harvey describes her own mother as crazy. If you think of all of that you can believe of what that means, that is what this woman is like. Vicky Laveau Harvey's mother is a horrible, horrible person. And I think Vicky Laveau Harvey is careful not to talk too much about mental illness, because I don't think her mother was ever diagnosed with anything. Growing up, she just thought her mother was overbearing and violent and just a very, very difficult person to live with and to have a relationship with. And then as an adult, it didn't get any better. You would go through periods where she didn't speak to her children, go through periods where she completely disowned her children, wrote them out of the will, seemingly for no reason whatsoever. So it kind of, for a reader, it kind of had, for a third-party outsider, it kind of has all the markings of a mental health or a mental health problem. But because they're never diagnosed, they talk very little about that. They really just talk about how difficult a person their mother was, to the point where the mother, while both sisters had spread across the world, one sister in a different part of Canada and Vicky Laveau Harvey in Australia, they heard that their father, still living with the mother, was being starved almost to death by the mother. So when they do go to Canada, when her mother breaks her hip in a fall and she's in hospital, they set in motion this plan. The plan is never to get the mother back into the house, but to find a way to either have her committed or to have her put in a home for like a high care or a low care aged care home, but to find any reason they can think of so that their mother does not have to return to the family home, because they find their father almost starved to the point of malnourishment, very, very thin, and just not thinking clearly because of the treatment that he's received from his own wife. So they go about feeding him and clothing him and making sure that he's happy and healthy. And it's this wonderful, wonderful descriptions of these things, and this re-emerging love for their father while they try and care for him, because both sisters had been completely shut out of their parents' lives. It was fascinating. I gave it 5 stars. I think I couldn't find a flaw with it really, and it's quite. If memoir's not for you, this is a good one to read, because it's not a huge 500-page memoir mapping out an entire part of someone's life. It is one aspect of that life. So it's this woman's relationship with her mother and father and sister, and how that manifests itself in this long distance relationship between Sydney and Calgary or Canada. Super interesting. I can highly recommend it. That's the Erratics by Vicky Laveau Harvey. That's finished. I also grabbed, so that's finished, and then to replace that on audiobook, I've grabbed Sophie Hardcastle's Below Deck, which I mentioned at the beginning. I really want to talk about this some more. It sounds super interesting, and I think I'm about 2/3 the way through. And just to give you a bit of a taster, it's very restrictive. So whenever she's thinking about her own life, it's very restrictive prose. Like, she's very restrained, and this, the title Below Deck is almost like you're being held below deck against your will. And there's large parts where she is free, and where she's embracing a new career in art, or where she's out on a boat, and you can see her heart and her mind and her emotions just open up to the world, and the prose very much does that. It just opens up. And then at other times it just restricts, like she's a prisoner within herself. It's a very, very interesting way of writing, and the imagery of the ocean and colours is just so good. And I want to say more about this when I finish it, so expect me to do a reasonably full review next week. I am getting rained on, so I'm sitting out here in my garden and it's just starting to rain. So the light is failing, so I have to go. That's it for me. I'm going to do another video soon, because I'm brewing an idea for a little reading style project in my head machine, and I want to run this by you. So there'll be another video in the next day or so to lay out this idea more fully. Got to go. Getting wet. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.